Which teams had the best draft classes from the 2026 NFL Draft? Let's dig in. The three teams that we're going to dig into today are the Carolina Panthers, the Cleveland Browns, and the Las Vegas Raiders. Starting off with the Carolina Panthers, they did everything that they needed to maximize the window that they created to become a consistent playoff team and the best team in the NFC South. While all the other teams in the NFC South are trying to find their footing and figure out what they're doing, as the Atlanta Falcons don't really have much certainty for what's going on at quarterback, while the Saints are trying to build up with Tyler Shuck at QB for them. I really see that this team is set up for success over the next couple of years by focusing on bolstering the lines of scrimmage. Looking at this draft class, I loved the selection of Monroe Freeling in the first round because they need somebody who can start at tackle for them this upcoming year with Ike Mekwanu's injury that he suffered at the end of the season. If he eventually is able to come back and there is no issue with his recovery, you move Monroe Freeling to right tackle, and then you got Ike Mekwanu at left tackle. This offensive line could be awesome for the next 5 years. But coming back around and taking Lee Hunter to replace A'Shawn Robinson, who I think Lee Hunter could be a much better player than A'Shawn Robinson, with Derrick Brown already established, this defensive line looks scary good. Not to mention the fact that you added Jalen Phillips in free agency. It is going to be hard to move the ball against this front now that Lee Hunter has been plugged into the middle. I am also a very big fan of Chris Brazzell, the Tennessee receiver that they drafted on day 2. Brazzell has tremendous explosiveness, and he's got a lot of length as a deep threat. Xavier Legette has not worked, and to take a guy like this on day 2 as the eventual replacement for Legette, if Legette can't figure it out this year, makes this receiving core dangerous. If Legette does figure it out, you have so much depth at wide receiver. The rest of this class, I see a lot of value. Willie III is a physical and athletic corner who could maybe become a starter for you down the line, but at the very least will be good rotational depth. Sam Hesht was one of my highest rated center prospects who should start for you at center from day 1. He moves really well. His body placement is phenomenal. I think that Hesht could be one of the biggest steals in this class. And then lastly, Zakee Wheatley, the safety from Penn State, was one of the more unheralded safety prospects. He has great pursuit angles. He's got good instincts. He's reactive. Maybe he isn't a starter from day 1. Eventually he could be, but at the very least, this is a guy that I can trust on special teams. I like what the Carolina Panthers did. This is a team that is going to be the best team in the NFC South over the next couple of years if Bryce Young could take another leap in 2026. Next, the Cleveland Browns came away with a class that is setting them up for success, not so much in 2026, but in 2027 and beyond. They recognized that they weren't going to be a team that was going to pick a quarterback early this year with really no options on the table. So instead, they looked internally and they realized we have to have a foundation for a young quarterback in 2027 to step into in order for him to hit the ground running, whether that's Dante Moore or Arch Manning or whichever quarterback in 2027. This class accomplishes exactly that. Spencer Fano is going to start at tackle for you, likely at left tackle, or he can play one of the guard spots for your team. He moves really well. He's a really good athlete. I love their moves at wide receiver, though. This wide receiver room was bad. It was atrociously bad. And to come away with 2 guys that were considered to be first rounders in this class by many from the national media is a major, major pull. Casey Concepcion's explosiveness as a deep threat with Denzel Boston's big-bodied contested catch winning ability makes a really unique tandem of receivers, not to mention the fact that you've got the veteran Jerry Jeudy, who has been relatively reliable for you. This receiver room went to a bunch of nobodies to really young and also potentially impressive and could be massive for that young quarterback in 2027. But this rest of this class, they took swings on depth for guys that have potential to maybe become starters. Austin Barber, who could be a swing guard tackle for you, could work his way into the starting lineup, but at the very least, that's good depth. Parker Brailsford is a center prospect who's on the smaller side, but is really strong for his size and moves really well and could maybe challenge for that starting center role. I really also am a fan of selecting Justin Jefferson at linebacker and getting Emmanuel McNeil-Warren where they did in the second round was a major steal. Your defense is loaded front to back with really good athletes. And McNeil Warren at safety is that next premier piece that can make your defense that was already really good last year into an even better one. Not to mention the decision to go with Taylor Green with so many day 3 picks, just to take a swing and say, you know what? This kid's really physically gifted. He is a super talented athlete. Let's see if he has something to bring to the table here. I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor Green doesn't take some snaps and start for the Browns at some point in 2026. And lastly, the Las Vegas Raiders were picking first overall. And a lot of times when these teams that pick first overall, they're on bad footing. They're in a spot where their roster is just loaded with holes. There's no expectation that the upcoming year after picking first overall, they're going to transition into an immediately competitive team. But if the Raiders, out of any teams, shocks everybody, not saying they become a playoff team, but they win 7 games this upcoming year and take a step forward, and Mendoza looks good as a rookie, it's going to be because of the rest of the class that they put together and a lot of the pieces that they brought in free agency. Some of those players include Traden Stukes, who they took in the second round, who is going to be a starting slot safety for you, who is a really good coverage player for a safety and is going to be a high-impact player from day one. Kieran Crawford is going to replace Tyree Wilson, who is a solid defensive end. And while he might not be a high upside prospect, I see that Kieran Crawford can carve out a role as one of the guys on your team as a starter for the next 5 or so years. Trey Zune was one of the more underrated selections overall in this class for any team that took offensive linemen. While he was projected to play center for whichever team took him, I see him starting at guard because they have Tyler Linderbaum and they have Jackson Powers-Johnson. An offensive line that was one of the worst in the NFL last year now looks a lot better, and they're going to be able to do some serious damage. And one way that they're going to be able to do damage is by running the rock. Mike Washington Jr. is going to play that Zach Charbonnet role that Clint Kubiak had last year when he was the OC for the Seattle Seahawks. And Ash Agenti will be the Kenneth Walker. I would argue that both of those players are far more explosive than the running back tandem for the Seahawks from last season. They're going to have some serious juice when they try to run the football, and not a lot of pressure is going to be on the shoulders of Fernando Mendoza. And lastly, Jermon McCoy, take him in the 4th round with the injury concerns, the fears that he might not play football again, is a good move because taking him in the 4th, all the risk is taken off the table. But if he actually is fine and his knee recovers, you just took a all-pro caliber corner in the 4th round. I like what this Raiders team is doing. I think that if by 2027 we're looking at the Raiders as a challenging team to get into the playoffs, maybe one of the top teams in the AFC West and the AFC in general, it would not shock me. This is a franchise-defining draft class that will set them up for success for the next 5 or so years. Comment below, which team do you think had the best draft class? Hit the like button on this video and subscribe. We'll catch you later.